Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's me, Mitch. Today I want to show you probably the quickest way to cook a steak and have it come out really, really good. If I haven't sous vide a steak previously in the day, and I just want to cook it, but I want to make sure that it comes out really well, this is what I do. And it's very simple. We're going to sear it off, and we're going to finish it in the oven. So the first thing I want to do is I want to preheat my oven to about 400 degrees. And we'll start that. Then I'm going to get my steak out of the refrigerator, and today I've got a New York strip. We're going to cook this New York strip. We're going to sear it in butter. And I'm going to sear it in my Dubai carbon steel pan, which I'm going to put on high, let it start to preheat. And I'm going to take a chunk of butter, put it in the pan. This really is a simple, almost no-brainer way of doing a steak. To make sure the temperature comes out right, I'm going to use my meter, Bluetooth thermometer probe. And we're going to put that in first thing. Also, since this is coming right out of the freezer, right out of the freezer bag, it's been thawing in the refrigerator overnight, I'm going to salt it first. And make sure that I blot it nice and dry so that it takes a good sear. I'm going to put the thermometer in and make sure I get the thermometer in the center of the steak. When you push this in, there's a mark on it that shows you how far to push it in so that some of it sticks out, and that tells me the ambient temperature. I'm going to salt it real good on both sides. I could have what they call dry brine this by salting it earlier and putting it in the refrigerator. But this particular method I'm using now is kind of a last minute thing. In other words, it's 4 o'clock. It's time for my second meal of the day. I really haven't had a chance to do any prep whatsoever except take this particular steak out of the freezer last night and put it in the refrigerator. So the butter in the pan is getting hot enough. I'm going to start by searing off the outside edges of the steak. And while I'm doing that, I'll get my cell phone out here and open the meter app. Let's see. And I will tell it to set up the cook. And I'm going to go to a previous cook. And I'm going to use that one. And I'm going to say repeat that cook and start the cook. And that cook's going to be to 130 degrees internal temperature. I'm going to finish searing off the edges. And then I'm going to put the steak down in the pan, let it sear for a minute to a minute and a half aside. It's a very simple way to cook a steak, and it always comes out great. Always comes out great. Like I said, this is probably the best way to cook a steak. If you haven't done any preparation in advance, you haven't dry brined it, you haven't had time to put it in the sous vide for a couple hours, in which case I would just finish it in the carbon steel like this, then it'd be ready to eat. But in order to cook it, we're going to finish it in a 400-degree oven, right in the pan that we're searing it in. And it should come out perfect. Should come out perfect. So that looks good on that side. We'll give it about a minute on the other side. This whole process should take no more than 10 or 15 minutes to do. It's something that I do quite often. It doesn't make much of a mess. Before I set off my smoke detectors, let me turn on the range hood. Pardon the noise. Right now it says that it's 160 degrees ambient and it's 45 degrees internal, and it's got to go up to 130. And as soon as the internal temperature starts climbing, the app for the meter thermometer will estimate the cooking time, but it zeroes in on it as it gets further into the cook. So, got a nice sear on both sides. We'll flip it over, turn off the burner. Put this on the center shelf of the oven. Close the door. And that's all we have to do. Just a very small little bit of spatter on the cooktop. Clean that off, and that's about all the mess that we've made. So now it's just a matter of watching the app here. And when the internal temperature gets to about 10 degrees before our desired temperature, there, it just alerted me and said that the cook time has been estimated at 8 minutes, but I doubt that it will take that long. It usually lowers the estimate as it gets into the cook. But we're at 60 degrees, 61 degrees internal, and basically we're looking for about 120, at which point this thing will beep. And it'll tell me to remove the steak from the heat and let it rest. During the period of time when it's resting, the internal temperature will come up to about 130 degrees or thereabouts. Then I know my steak is medium rare, just the way I want it. Now this is not a really thick steak. It's not going to take near as long to cook as a really thick steak might take. I think I'm going to eat this right on the cutting board. It says I have 4 minutes left, so I'll get my cutting board set up over here. And I will get my big knife ready to cut it up, because there's something primal about eating a steak with a knife like this. My oven's just actually come up to temperature, but it's been plenty hot to cook it up to this point. See how my app is doing? It says 3 minutes left. It is 87 degrees internal temperature. Ambient temperature says 321. And it's climbing because the oven is set to 400. Get myself a fork. And some napkins. And I'm ready to eat it. And in a couple of minutes, it'll be ready. So that was quick. That was quick. Very little mess. Turn the range hood off now. Now we just have to wait a couple minutes for it to come up to temperature. Now I'm not fast forwarding this video at all during the cook because I just want to show you the whole process here from start to finish. It says 1 minute left now. Got 1 minute. 103 degrees. 4 degrees. 5 degrees. Won't be long before it comes up to around 120. And turn the hood on again, and a little smoke coming out of the oven vent there. I think you'll agree with me that this method, especially with the use of this meter thermometer, and on my website at oldguycarnivore.com, I've got a page with links to all the kitchen gadgets that I use. And on that page, you'll find a link to the meter thermometer and also to the Dubai carbon steel pan that I used, and along with all the other things that I use in my kitchen to facilitate staying on this carnivore lifestyle and making short work out of cooking anything. All right, this says to remove it from the heat now, so we'll do that. We'll shut the oven off. Take our steak out of the oven. Now, when you do remove this pan out of the oven, you have to keep in mind that this handle will burn the hell out of you. So don't grab onto it. Don't have the urge to grab onto the handle. And we'll remove the steak from the hot pan. Put it on the plate. And for all intents and purposes, now it just has to rest for a couple of minutes. So there's no mess. I don't even have to wash out this pan because after I'm finished my steak, this thing will be cool enough for me to just take some paper towels and wipe it out. And I can leave that very thin coating of butter inside the pan. And that seals it up. Kind of gets it ready for the next cook. We're now at 129 degrees inside, so coming up on my 130. This thing is going to tell me that it's rested pretty soon. I'm pretty well convinced that I'm done. I don't need to wait for the app to finish, so I'll close the app. Using my glove, I will remove the thermometer because it's hot. Be careful of that. And now I've got my steak ready to eat already. So, just for fun, let's take this steak, put it on my cutting board, and see what it looks like. That was it, start to finish. I didn't speed up anything. You've watched the whole entire process of taking a steak, defrost it out of the refrigerator, searing it in a carbon steel pan, finishing it in the oven, letting it rest, and now we're going to cut it open and see what it looks like. It looks perfect. Look at that. Looks perfect. Wow. Doesn't have to take a long time to prepare your food. All right, now the obligatory taste test and chewing that you've grown to know and love. Excellent. Perfectly cooked. Perfectly salted. Tastes wonderful. Tastes just wonderful. And that's it. That's the quickest way to cook a perfect steak in what I imagine was 10 minutes or less. And sit down and be eating. And for me, my second meal of the day. With that, I'm going to finish my dinner. And you all take the rest of the day off and eat meat.